Ho, 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 my brewing brothers and sisters.
Seasons, greetings, cretins.
You see how we both changed it up there? That's because it's the holidays are upon us, and we're here having a great time with our good friend Fal Allen, who's joined us from Anderson Valley Brewing Company. We're going to talk about brewing winter beers.
Yeah,
and what's different about winter beers. Some good winter beers. We're going to try some great winter beers from Anderson Valley, and have a little fun, just like our fine sponsor,
John Blickman.
John Blickman Engineering. Yes, they've been sponsoring this show for 15 years or something.
Yeah.
It's got to be a new record for people pissing their money away on something very foolish. But hey, that's all right. Our good friend John Blickman's been paying for this show, so you don't have to. Check them out, blickmanengineering.com, or go to your favorite homebrew shop and ask them to see their Blickman gear. Most homebrew shops carry it because it is some of the best in the world that you're going to get. So check them out. Great folks there, and really innovative, creative, and well-built brewing equipment for any budget. Yeah. All right. As I mentioned, we've got our good friend Fal Allen here. And not only is he a great brewer, but he's a great author too. You've written some books. It's pretty much, winter beer. You did the barley wine one, right?
The barley wine one with Dick Cantwell. Yeah. And those are definitely winter beers.
Absolutely. Yeah. What if you were to define what a winter beer is? What is a winter beer? They're not all high alcohol. They're different, right?
Yeah, I think in the winter you want something that's a little heavier, a little more ponderous, a little more flavorful than you might want on a hot summer day. Also, as you mentioned, alcohol has a warming effect, so having some alcohol in that beer is a good winter thing. So more flavor, more alcohol, and oftentimes people will put some spices in there because spice things up for the winter season.
Yeah,
right. That's a common. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I often think of winter beers being a little maltier versions than your average style. And as you mentioned, the spices, a little more malt helps support those spices as well, so they're not sharp, but kind of mellow and work with the beer.
Right. I always think, winter spiced beers, Christmas beers, holiday beers are always, in my mind, spices, some stronger alcohol, some residual sugar, some extra body, and there's also, winter warmers, similar thing, and, high alcohol. But when we're talking winter beers, we got this really nice black rice from Anderson Valley as well, which is, it's an ale.
It's a lower alcohol beer, but it's got a lot of flavor. So this is kind of your
nice and clean.
Yeah, big flavor for your session beer drinking folks.
Yeah.
Right. This is 3.8%. Right. And just packs a ton of flavor and malt background, nice and some, with some body as well. Yeah, it's I think, having drank a lot of sessionable beers in England, it very much reminds me of a good British ale.
Yeah, that's what we were shooting for. And one of the reasons we made this beer 3.8% is because sometimes you walk into a pub, which we all love to do, and you look up on the board and everything's 8.5% or more. A lot of IPAs, double IPAs, big strong beers, and those are fine beers, but some days you got things to do. You can't have an 8.5% beer with your lunch and get back to doing stuff. So 3.8%,
a can,
a lot of flavor.
Mhm.
I can't. I
have an
know.
8.5. How do you get so much flavor and malt character in this?
Well, one of the things we did was we used black rice, and that has a really kind of interesting nutty flavor, has real kind of umami quality to it.
Mm-hmm.
So that certainly gives that beer more flavor and body than it would normally have at 3.8%. And then we use some darker malts to kind of help buoy that up, give it a little more color.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like the flavor of the beer a lot. And it, as you say, it has a little nuttiness. It's got it's not just a Pilsner malt flavor. But yet it's still very crisp and clean like a Pilsner.
Well, and really, everyone always assumes that rice is gonna, thin out a beer, take away flavor.
Mm-hmm.
But not the black rice. The black rice is, I mean, it's literally black if you've ever cooked with it. And it's not like it's not even very much like wild rice, which is a different kind of flavor.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of this dark glutinous, rice, and it really has some interesting flavors.
Yeah,
that's interesting. I've done a lot of beers with wild rice, but never black rice.
Do you have to do a cereal mash to use it?
You could, no doubt, and you would get probably a little more flavor, and then you'd get more sugars from that. But we weren't looking for fermentables. What we were looking for was kind of that flavor and a little bit of that color.
Mm-hmm.
So we just put it in with the regular mash and let it sit a little bit longer.
Okay.
It is delicious.
Well, thank you.
It's easy drinking. I wouldn't got to go out and find me a couple of 6-packs of that. Yeah, it even pours with a bit of viscosity.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
You didn't base it off any particular style, did you, Val? It just kind of spun off on its own.
As Jamil, brought up earlier, if you've been to England, and their pubs, you've had a British mild before, and that's one of my favorite kind of styles. They're just basic session beers with a lot of flavor to them, and sometimes they're light brown, sometimes they're golden color. They kind of run the gamut. So we kind of started off with that kind of beer in mind. That, British mild, but it's I wouldn't categorize it that way, so we don't want to call it that. But that was kind of our basis, our starting point for it.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, definitely very sessionable.
Yeah, and I don't think I'd categorize it as a winter beer, but I think if you're looking for something in the winter that's got some flavor, got a little bit of color, and isn't too alcoholic.
Yeah.
Because after this, everything just, goes uphill in alcohol.
Yeah. Well, I think it's kind of interesting, kind of challenged my, your person at Anderson Valley was saying, winter beers, and we got this. I'm like, kind of challenged my thinking on winter beer. I was thinking, Foul must be behind this. There could be lower ABV winter beers, a 3.8% like this, and then let's say, well, you spice it with some pumpkin spices or something. Well, it's kind of like it's winter, it's sessionable. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I don't think a brewer or even a consumer should be limited to think that winter beers have to be high in alcohol. I think you're right. You can run the whole gamut, and you can spice lighter ales, just remain even-handed about it, and I think you make some really interesting, good beers.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So y'all getting a lot of rain up there at the moment? I noticed there's a storm moving down from Seattle.
Yeah, we're finally getting some rain. We brewed a Stein beer, a stone beer, yesterday, and it was supposed to be pouring the whole day, but the Solstice gods took mercy on us and pushed the rain off another day, so now it's pouring outside now.
Oh, okay. I was
Yeah.
figuring it was probably, tail high on a tall bear up there at the moment.
Mhm.
Water.
Now, how did you heat your rocks for your Stein beer?
We took a 55-gallon drum and, cut a hole in it so we could get wood in the bottom, and then put a plate about halfway down and shoved a lot of oak underneath into the fire part, and had the rocks just piled up in the top.
Oh,
Nice. And then you
And
just use tongs to carry them over and drop them in.
yeah. I think if we do it again, which I hope we will probably insulate that top part a little bit to kind of hold a little more heat in, and
Mm.
maybe close up the top so we have a chimney-like kind of structure to
Mm.
help kind of contain some of the heat in there.
Right.
Because the top rocks were clearly not as hot as the bottom ones.
I did one Libertine with I don't know if you know Tyler down there, but we heated them up on just a gas grate, and even that worked out pretty well because they really get smoking and a sizzling when you drop
yeah.
them in the wort.
Hmm.
So
what part of the boil did you use them in? Like the beginning or the end, or?
In the beginning of the boil, we were going for flavor more than for, heating up
mhm.
the wort or the mash. Like traditionally, they would take the rocks and put them in the mash, or maybe sometimes
Oh.
the boil to heat them up. And that's how they would heat the mash up, or get the liquid to its final part of boiling. But we were really going for the flavor component of it. So we didn't put it in the mash. We did it in the boil right at the very beginning. And we didn't put them in the kettle. We kind of recirculated through a second vessel and put them into that second vessel,
Mm.
because we didn't want to have a lot of exploded rocks inside of our kettle later on.
Yeah, makes sense.
Did you get any popping of your rocks?
Oh yeah, we had some popping rocks.
Oh yeah. Wow. Yeah, you got to be careful of that. It can be,
Yeah, some of them, once you put them in the liquid, they exploded.
huh? Wow.
Most of them stuck together pretty good. We had, I picked out some good rocks from our property.
Mm-hmm. There you go. We kind of got sidetracked on Stein beer. We'll have to do a Stein beer show with you
Ha.
once that thing's out, huh?
Yeah, we're gonna try and do another one in March. We're gonna do a sati where we put it into the mash and not
Cool.
boil at all. So that should be a fun one.
Yeah,
All right.
I haven't brewed one of those before.
Let's
Yeah,
do
me
this.
neither.
Let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll move on to another fine beer and more talk about brewing winter beers right after this. All right, we're back. We're talking with a good friend Fal Allen from Anderson Valley Brewing Company, and drinking some of their beers that they kindly sent to us.
Yeah.
Next one up is the Winter Solstice Ale.
Yeah.
Now this one you guys have had around for a long time, right?
Yeah, we have. This beer has been around, gosh, probably 25 years.
Wow.
And maybe a little longer. And it really is our winter warmer. And it's based off of winter warmers you might find in England. I think the first one that I ever had was the Sam Smith
Mhm.
winter warmer.
All right.
And so it's a little bit bigger, a little rounder, and it's lightly spiced.
Oh yeah, lovely caramel in that. Little
Yeah.
toffee. Oh yeah, that's lovely.
Coffee, vanilla,
Yeah.
cinnamon.
Mhm. Yeah, frankly, this is one of the best spice compliments I've had in a beer. I mean, in terms of the way it really melds into the malt character and stuff, it's really well balanced.
Yeah, it's relatively subtle compared to a lot of other beers.
Yeah,
It's very
Yeah.
present, but
yeah.
not overwhelming.
So often cinnamon especially turns out very woody in a beer. You get this hard tannic edge to spice beers, and this is just smooth as can be. Very nice.
What is the best way to layer in spices to a beer and not have it be overwhelming?
I think it depends on the spice. You know,
Mhm.
some are better on the cold side, some are better on the hot side. You know, I think as John was saying, cinnamon can be really woody, particularly if you put it in hot.
Mhm.
So I think you just an even hand is really the biggest challenge for a lot of brewers.
Right.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I want to throw spice in everything all the time.
Well, finding that balance can be difficult. People always ask us like, well, what should I start with? It's like, well, do I throw an ounce in or, a half a pound in of cinnamon to my, winter warmer? And I always tell them, it's like, well, first start with a smaller batch, take a pint and, try that. Or, if you want to age it on spice or something like that, take something off in a growler, add your spices to that, see how that works out. Do smaller tests first. That's what we always did at Heretic was we would, just take some aside, take our time, taste, trial, start with, whatever average number you want to use or whatever you think is right, and kind of go from there. But lots of tasting, lots of adjusting. One of the nice things, commercially is we'll brew and then we'll hold back. We'll put some into kegs. Then we'll spice what we've planned for. And if it goes a little too far, which happens sometimes, then we can just add back some unspiced beer. And usually that's what we'll do. We'll go a little bit far and then add back. And that way, we get the best of both worlds where, you can kind of push your amount, but also dial it back. And some beers, you want a spiced version and an unspiced version anyways, especially home brewing. You're gonna, you want to put a few more taps on for Christmas party. You can do that. And what spices go best with, wintry beers? Is it based off of the base beer, like is a American light lager gonna take different spices, different types of spices? I know different amounts, but different types of spices than American barley wine, or what spice flavors, I guess I'm asking, go best with what styles of beer? So cinnamon goes best with, clove goes best with. Fill in the blanks here, guys. Come on.
I don't know.
It's like
I
Mad
think
Libs. Just any noun here.
just throw something out there.
Yeah.
I always think about, your winter beers, your holiday beers. You're going to probably be having them with food. And so I like to kind of find complements in the food that can go into the beer. So, I think a lot of us think, at least in North America, about the traditional things you're going to have for Thanksgiving or Christmas or one of the holiday meals. And, nutmeg, cinnamon seem to pop up. And I think ginger works well in a lot of different things. So I think it kind of depends on, are you making it to go with some food? And is it going to be a bigger, more ponderous beer that can take some spice? Or is it going to be a light beer that you kind of want to stand on its own?
Yeah. I think the warmer tasting spices like nutmeg, allspice, cinnamon work well with your caramel malts with some residual sugar. Yeah, and I think one important thing when using spices in a beer is, never boil them. Put them in, after heat off, like whirlpool, for example, or, at the end of the boil. You can do hot steeping, and I think hot steeping in wort works really well. The pH and so on keeps the spice essence from becoming too tannic. I remember one of my first home brews was a spiced Christmas beer where I boiled cinnamon in water and then added that to the beer, and of course it came out extremely woody and bitter. So yes, I think hot steeping and wort is a good way to use a lot of different spices.
Interesting thought on the pH, kind of helping with the tannins.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I find it just depends on the spice, whether or not I want to go hot or cold. The some spices, you toast them,
Yeah.
and it kind of develops a completely different flavor as well. One thing I'm concerned about generally with spices, I'm not too concerned about bacteria. I'm sure there is some on it, but if I'm home brewing, I wouldn't worry about it. Commercial brewing, and I'm putting in a package, then I'm concerned about some sort of pasteurization or some sort of way of avoiding anything there. A lot of powdered stuff contains bacteria in that, especially when it's spray dried. So when you're getting like malt extract or lactose or something like that, and it's spray dried, has a lot of air that gets in it, and because they're using a lot of air, can have a lot of bacteria or some bacteria. So those I always want to use hot, but I'm not sure. When it's a thing like cinnamon, they actually grind it to a powder. They don't blow it dry, so that may not have the same issues. And a lot of these spices, they have an antibiotic property in and of themselves because of the the oils, the acids, other compounds. So maybe they're just fine.
Some of the spices are different added cold versus warm. I think coffee is kind of a good example of that, where cold brew coffee and hot brewed coffee can be very different. And it depends on what you want out of each of those. Sometimes you want some bitterness that might come from a hot side use, and sometimes you don't. So you might be willing to take a little bit more of a biological risk than other things. But I think you make good point. Stuff that's spray dried is probably going to have yeast and other bacteria and stuff in there, and probably don't want that in the long run.
Yeah, the coffee's an example of hot steeping versus cold steeping. I think in cold steeping you get more of the aromatics surviving, from the spice, whereas hot steeping you get more of the flavor. And it's very much like hops, very much like coffee, and so on. That's you're right. It's a good way to get two different aspects of a spice in a beer by using the two different methods.
Yeah.
Well, with coffee, I always notice. I think when you go hot, I think you get more of the oils out, and maybe also a little bit more of the acids. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, because I'm sure there's a lot of flavor in those oils, but then there's kind of also a little harshness to getting that acid out of there as well. I'm not that much of a coffee guy, but I do notice, like John's saying, the big difference between cold steeping and hot steeping coffee.
Oh yeah, especially in beer, I think you can find big differences. Well, you put it in the wort versus putting it in the finished beer.
Yeah, one of the problems I have with with some coffees and some dark roasted grains is that you get this kind of green, vegetal bell peppery kind of note coming from it. I cannot stand that. Yet it just shows up in various places. Over the years, we had, malt supply issues where all of a sudden everything tastes like green bell pepper. And it's, it had to be the malt. And so we ended up switching maltsters, and, that fixed it. But, sometimes you can get a sense of a little bit of that kind of green malt in the background, that green bell pepper. And I get a lot from coffees. So there's some, it has to do with the the temperatures and times, or however they are processing those to roast them to get those characters or not. That's one of my pet peeves on something with coffee, or even any roasted grains.
Yeah. Do you all make coffee beers at all, Phil?
We've made a couple here and there in the past. I've tried both hot and cold. I think I prefer the cold steeping, or even sometimes they'll be where you make a separate side brew in cold water and then add that to the beer post fermentation. And that seems to kind of be one of my favorite ways to do it. But then you got to plan that beer is going to be watered down a little bit, so you'd be at a little higher gravity than you normally would. So you have to make adjustments for that, because it takes a fair amount of water, to cold steep coffee to get enough flavor. So it's going to be adding some, you're going to be adding some water back in there.
Interesting. I've got a question in the chat, Jamil. They were wondering if baker's chocolate is one of those bacteria-prone powders, and whether baker's chocolate powder should be used hot or cold.
Cocoa powder?
Yeah.
That's a good question. When I first started using cocoa powder, I used it in the boil, at the end of the boil, and that's certainly the safest way. For a while at Heretic, we used cocoa powder in the fermenter post ferment. And we didn't have any problems for the majority of batches. But, if you have 1 in 100 batches that ends up with a problem, it's too expensive. That's the problem. The flavor was great, but it's just that the price was really high if you're going to toss, even 1% of your beer, and then you gotta be lab testing and everything. But at home, I think you're okay. Just store your beers cold, after the fact, and drink them, and they'll be fine.
I think the alcohol percentage of the beer and the acidity of the beer, those both protect it. So
they tend to help. Yeah,
you wouldn't want to take a chance with something that might have bacteria in it on a 3.5% or 4% beer. You might be willing to take more chance on an 8.5% beer, because that's a considerable difference, and that alcohol probably keep most micro things from growing.
Definitely suppresses them.
Yeah.
You get up to about 20%, then you're good. Even then, they can still advance, but it really keeps them down.
I had diastaticus in one of my Christmas beers.
Yeah.
Just some wild yeast that was probably on one of the spices or something, but that beer ended up fermenting way down and lost all the flavor.
Diastaticus is very common. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
And since it's so flavorless, people don't that'd be interesting. We should brew something with diastaticus. We should culture up some diastaticus and then brew something that is quite flavorless yet very high alcohol. It'd be the new seltzer. I'm just saying, we can make like a 20% seltzer with diastaticus.
I don't know if you really want to be the father of the new seltzer, do you?
I'll do anything. Hey, is there a buck in it? Yeah, all right, I'm on.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that right. The spices, but in general, I'm fine with cocoa powder. I think if I was doing it today with cocoa powder, what I would do is very similar to what people are doing with a lot of the hops now. I would do my boil, I'd whirlpool and bring the temperature down to maybe 170, 175 Fahrenheit. Add my cocoa powder, then let it mix in and do it that way. And that way, I think your chances of anything really living and causing a problem are pretty low, at least beer spoilage wise.
Pasteurization is pretty thorough after like 10 minutes at those temperatures.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're getting a lot of kills there.
Yeah, I think that's a pasteurization number of like 500.
Yeah. So I would do it that way. Long roundabout way of answering the guy's question.
Yeah.
Good question, by the way. Let's see here.
Short break.
We'll do another short break. And when we come back, maybe I'm ready to move on to the next beer. We'll be back right after this. All right, we're back. We're enjoying some great beers from Anderson Valley. If you get the chance, check them out. We already did the black rice, which I could drink a case of. No problem. Here you go. It's backwards. Yeah. And then we moved on to the winter solstice, which I've had this before a number of times. And I prefer it over the spring solstice because you have a summer solstice.
Yeah, the summer.
Yeah, the summer solstice.
Oh.
I like that one too, but I think I actually prefer this one. And maybe I think this is like the best batch of this I've ever had.
I would drink a case of this easily.
This is really good.
Yeah, delicious. Yeah, I'm glad I have another can.
I do enjoy the balance. Yes, they sent us 2 cans of each.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the marketing person's name is. Having an email. Jessica?
I don't know.
Somebody?
Lauren. I think it was Lauren.
Lauren, Tim.
Keely?
Could be Keely.
Yeah,
Keely, yeah.
Keely.
It was
Keely. There you go. Jessica Keely. I was very close. JK are very close in the alphabet.
That's right.
Very close.
Very nice to send us some beers, and you didn't ask us to do this. It's just we know they're great beers, and
Thank you.
chance to drag you in. So
Always a pleasure to hang out with you guys, even remotely.
Yeah.
Way more fun in person.
it's remotely a pleasure. Yeah, we actually saw each other at Drake's Barn.
Yeah, in Sacramento.
Yeah.
Very cool location.
Yeah, if you've never been, Drake's Barn in West Sacramento, it's this kind of barn-like wing thing structure out there, right?
Yeah.
Is it a pub?
Funky
Looks really
little.
cool. Yeah, funky little. I don't know. It's got like a pizza restaurant and then a big bar. It's outdoor space under a cover. It's just a really cool place. It's Drake's Brewery, great brewery out in our area, and then they also have guest beers on as well. Really cool place if you're ever heading up that way.
Yeah, they make some tasty beers too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure they make a great winter beer. What did I drink at the party? I drank. What was the special one on that they had? It was like a spruce beer. It was a spruce beer, I think.
Oh, those
They
are
had a
always
lot
good.
of beers on, and I tried most of them.
The
And I don't
spruce
remember.
beer was great. Really great. As are all the Drake's beers.
Speaking of great beers, Val, Which caramel malts did you use in the winter solstice?
C40 and C80.
Okay. Yep.
It's not, it's not super complicated malt bill wise.
Yeah. About 5% each.
Oh no, I think a little more than that.
Oh,
I'd
okay.
have to look. I can look if you want. It's
I
on
mean,
this
I mean,
computer here.
6.9%.
yeah. I'm just so enamored of the balance in this beer.
Right.
It's very nice.
I
And
think
it's,
you're probably pretty close. I think combined maybe 15% to 20%.
Yeah.
Since it's not when a beer's like really high ABV, a small percentage of crystal will really be heavy. And when a beer's lighter in ABV, a higher percentage of crystal doesn't show up as much because it's all relative to the ABV. If you're putting in, because it's relative to the amount of base malt you're throwing in. If you're throwing in 2,000 pounds of base malt and you want to put in 5% crystal, that's different than if you're doing 500 pounds of base malt and you put 5% of crystal.
Yeah. It looks like there's about 8% of both the C40, C8, and the C80, as well as Munich malt.
Right around 15% total.
Yeah.
nice. Yeah. Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah, in that mid range, if you're going smaller beer, a lot more your crystal percentage, your specialty malt percentage goes up.
Yeah.
If you're making a really big beer, something 12, 15%, your percentage of crystal and specialties has to go down. It's
Because you still have lots of residual sweetness from the barley malt, from the base malt itself, you're saying.
that, and you're just increasing the gross amount. It doesn't, the addition of the Pilsner malt or whatever does not dilute the crystal malt. So when you make a really big beer and you stick to the same percentage, you end up just overwhelming everything with the crystal malt, even in low percentages. So the percentage of when you're doing a recipe, the percentage of the crystal malts is, or especially malts, is relative to the overall gravity, because that's what you're measuring it against, right? You're throwing in a ton of, really clean base malt just to get, some maltose for alcohol. The crystal malts go through the roof. So you have to adjust that way. All right. I didn't think I was going to finish all of this one before I went on to the next one, but I have to. It's delicious.
Me too.
Cheers.
I've got my special
Really
Clark Griswold pint glass. It is the season. I have a whole family of them. Got the Beverly D'Angelo one. I've got the kids, dog,
the brother or cousin or whatever it was.
Randy Quaid. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I do. All right. So we're talking spices. One of the beers that I think really goes well with a lot of the winter warmer spice thing is Belgian dark strong beers. You look at something like Hoeden Carolus and their Christmas ale, and some of the others. I think that style really it's kind of the Christmas beer for me.
And that's that's kind of a quad, is it? I forget. Yeah.
They tend to be 10, 11, 12%.
Okay, so a lot, and I believe they get up to that alcohol by adding sugar, refined or sugars, rather than additional malt. So to keep the body a little lighter. I know in the Scandinavian countries such as Norway, they have a tradition of Christmas beers where they add sugar to their usual beer recipe and then they sit around the table and talk crap about everybody else's brew as they drink them.
Were
It's a
they
fine
talking about your
tradition.
beers? Is that what you're saying?
No, I had not brought one of my beers to that event, but we had a fine
Right.
time.
Because you don't
talking
want
about
them
every
talking crap about your beer.
Yeah.
I heard that they add, instead of hot rocks, they'll add small demons to the beer to get it to boil.
Yeah, and they shout at them to piss them off too.
Oh, we're up to the next beer, are we?
Yeah.
This is 15.5% right there.
Yep.
Friends.
Illegal in some states. Yeah. It
If your state
Sorry.
is sober, I think it's fine.
it's kind of our ode to the Russian Imperial Stout. So we brew a big Imperial Stout, and then we age it for a year in a wild turkey bourbon barrel.
Wow. That's a beautiful looking beer.
Now, Val, when you do this, and you age it for a year, so a handful of things here. I may talk for the next half hour without actually asking a question.
Okay. Easy for John and I then.
That's right. Yeah. One of the things when we first started making, or when I first started making bourbon barrel aged beers, initially, and this is based off of, who was the guy? No, it's the guy. What's his name? Up
Jim.
50/50 way. Yeah, it was Jim.
Todd?
No, or who was it? Who was it in this area? There was a brewery in Lincoln, I think it was, where they were like one of the very first people to barrel age a beer. Well, I mean, that would have been a long time ago, but like in modern times. And there was like, hey, don't age it longer than like 6 weeks, because you start extracting a lot of, the wood, and you're getting like a different character. And we really want kind of the sweeter, bourbony, caramelly kind of thing. And so that's what I was going off of initially. And we ran that way for a long time. And got good results. And then at one point I was just like, I'm not getting enough character out of this. I want more. And so I left it longer and longer, and then I got to the point where I now will age a beer in bourbon barrels, whiskey barrels, for a year, like you've done with this beer.
Yeah.
But what I notice is you will get, some real, tannic, oaky kind of, character there. And what I found best was age it for a year, but then blend it back with a little bit of, unbarreled beer, which has kind of a rounder sweetness to it as well. And just kind of combine those two, and then you end up with something really dreamy like this. Did you guys add back some unbarreled beer, or you're all straight kimono, or whatever what is the word here?
We're 100% with the barrel age, but I think there's a bunch of things that go into that. You can certainly age a beer too long in a wooden barrel.
Yeah,
and then and you can break that down into a lot of different pieces. One is the barrel. Is it a fresh barrel? Is it a wine barrel? Is it a toasted barrel? Is it a bourbon barrel? And then you can break it down a little further. Even bourbon barrels have different levels of char in there. And that char is going to affect the amount of oak and tannin pickup you have. So with the wild turkey barrels, they have a super deep alligator char, and that allows there to be more movement in the wood, but that wood's already been charred, so you're not pulling out some of the tannins and some of the oakiness you might in a say like a wine barrel, or just a toasted barrel. And the wild turkey's been in there for quite a while too, so it's already pulled out a lot. And a lot of what this beer pulls out is mostly just the stuff out of that char that was the wild turkey. and it
Yeah.
brings a lot of the flavor with it.
I
And
do
about somewhere in between 9 months and a year, you do start to get into the wood and start to pull out some more tannins. So I think you got to be careful. And I like your idea of blending back. But it depends on the kind of barrel I think you're using.
Right.
I
Well,
think you get some oxidation character too that kind of rounds out and
Oh, yeah.
mellows the flavors of this, because so many barrel aged beers that you try, they may be short term, whatever, newer barrels, but there's always an alcoholic bite at the end of them, and this doesn't have that. It's just a very mellow drink all the way through. And I could picture this being an 8% beer if I hadn't read the can. Yeah. I mean, because it doesn't have that higher alcohol
well, and
aftertaste.
I'll tell you this. The reason is because it's a great brewery and they know how to ferment things and make it not taste like alcohol.
Yeah.
This is one of the things I think is most important to brewing high alcohol beers, is knowing how to brew something and control the types of alcohol that you're making. So I bet you, just right out of the fermenter, a year ago, it probably tasted smooth. You're only going to smooth out a little bit in the barrel aging, and you will get. And I would not say, I don't detect really any oxidation from this. I think there is some rounding, but I would not say, I detect anything
Prune
oxidative.
or anything like that. Okay. Yeah. Right.
I think it tastes very fresh, and very bright in a lot of aspects of the beer. There's like the residual sweetness. I get, a fair amount of oak and a bit oak tannin, like you're saying. But one of the things I like about adding back is if you're going to do this annually and, aging for a year, you can add back, you brew your next one, and then it's fresh, ready to go, and use that for blending into the previous one. What we did was save beer for a year and then match them up. Cold stored, you'd be shocked at how well they do. So we would do that. But the thing I like better is, you use the year to, age the beer, and then you brew your fresh batch. You take some of that off to blend back into your aged beer. And then, and it seems, it's weird, I know, but it seems a little more traditional to me to do that, to where there was a lot of blending going on back in the day. They had good beer, they had crappy beer, and they're like, all right, we'll blend a little bit of that together and let's sell this stuff. And we don't do it today, but well, I mean, you and I don't do this today, but it's not that you're trying to. We're clearly trying to make the best beer possible, and sometimes that is, blending in a little extra, fresh beer. I think it's delicious. And again, like John's saying, the 15.5 is completely hidden. It's in there.
It's a damn good thing we're broadcasting from home.
Jamil, you make a good point that there used to be a lot more blending. Right. And I think the secret to barrel aged beers, particularly the sour ones, even more so than the non-sour ones, is blending. And we go through all the barrels and taste them and decide which ones are going to make it into the blend and which ones aren't.
Exactly.
There are barrels, like you say, some of the barrels are like, oh my God, this is superb. And the one next to it is like, and it's okay. And the question is, do you just serve the superb one and have, two barrels worth? Or do you blend them to come up with a beer that is really good, but it wasn't as good as the superb one, and it certainly didn't have the characteristics of the bad one or the mediocre one, because it was blended off. And I think blending, particularly with barrel-aged beers, it's part of the art of how to get to the end product.
Well, and that's one thing I've ranted about in the past is, taste all your barrels,
Mhm.
and then the ones that don't taste good, don't think you can just blend those in. And it's like, oh, this will counter that. No, you just get rid of those, and all the ones that taste great, now you're into your blending. Because if you're blending only things that taste great, the result will be at least something that tastes great.
Tastes great. Yeah.
So
Yeah, if they're truly bad,
yeah,
truly bad ones should get tossed.
and it's so expensive,
Yeah.
because the barrel cost, the storage cost, the labor cost, the racking, everything else, and then you got evaporation, you got that cost too. It's like somebody magically got rid of 15% of your beer. It's like, thanks, and then out of those, it's like, well, these 3 barrels out of these 40 or 30 are no good. There's 10% out the crapper too. There's a reason why these beers cost a lot. I will say that this beer,
Huge Arker.
Huge Arker,
What's an Arker?
It's, well, hold on. Let's not get into that first. I think you should be wax dipping the top, because these are freaking fantastic.
Well, we
That's-
wax
that's
dip one of those cans, and it makes them really hard to open.
Mm-hmm.
Get
Makes it pretty
the
much
can down in there.
pretty much
and-
impossible. And cans are hermetically sealed, so they're good to store for a long time. Eventually it'll eat through the lining. That's not good, but if you get a chance, get out and get some of this beer. Get some of the winter solstice, get the black rice. All of these 3 are just fantastic. Since
They
you've
really
been
are.
back, Val, I say, no disrespect to the rest of the folks at Anderson Valley, but before you came back, I was not pleased with Anderson Valley. Since you came back, which has been some years now, the beers, a huge turnaround, and really has put Anderson Valley back on the map as one of, I think, the greatest breweries in the world. Really, just the quality level is so high across a wide span of different beers. I mean, you're really in there, if you ask me.
Thank you very much for those very kind words. I guess I just threaten people better than the last boss. But I think we've talked about this before. Matt Brenlinson at
Mhm.
Firestone, he manages to, make good beer, and he's not like I am. He's not down there brewing the beers every day, but he's overseeing the operations, and somehow he manages to make great beer over and over again and win more medals than anybody. And I finally have come up with the idea that he's grinding up puppies and unicorns and putting them in there, because
He probably is. I don't know. Have you seen that guy, his dark side? I'm just saying. Yeah.
I don't think he has a dark side. He's just Mr. Nice Guy, nicest guy, and he makes
He's
great
not
beer.
nice to you. You are nicer than
Um,
Jesus. So let's just go with that. I respect Firestone Walker, but if I had to choose one brewery over the other, I'd choose Anderson Valley.
Thank you.
I think
Literally, I feel the same
consistency
way.
of product and your range of product. For me, it's better. And I'm just being critical.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Unfortunately, we don't get as many the diversity of Anderson Valley products here in LA that you do up.
Oh,
up
see,
north.
that might be part of the difference. Is I'm closer to Anderson Valley. I can get all these great beers. I can get them on
Yeah.
draft a lot of times.
Hmm.
Whereas Firestone, I get there's 805 up here, and they've abandoned all the other beers. You can't get anything but 805. It's the only
Oh, really?
Firestone you can get.
Oh, yeah. We can get double barrel. We can get Union Jack, Special Jack. Yeah, we can get a few of those down here, but
And
Well,
yeah.
that's a sad problem that I think a lot of breweries face. They make really great beers, and their distributors out, each distributor is different. Some of them are just like, no, we don't want to take that. And
Mhm.
it may be the brewers or the consumer's favorite beer. But if a distributor doesn't want to bring it in, you know, and they have all of LA or all of San Francisco or all of Chicago, they don't want to bring it in, then your consumers are never going to see what happens to be your favorite beer.
Yeah.
So it's sad. I think a lot of breweries make really great beer and they just have trouble getting them to market. And I think Jamil's point of 805, it's not Firestone Walker's favorite beer, maybe their bank account's favorite beer, but it, you know, it's a good beer. I'm not dissing on it, but it's not the one that people, it's not, you know, they don't stand in line for. And yet it's the most widely distributed.
Mm-hmm. I'm not going to drink it, but you know, that's what's selling.
Yeah, it is a high moving flagship kind of beer, but yeah, it's not the most interesting for beer brewers like us. You know, we're
well,
this is real good.
There is God's gift to American light lagers being brewed all around us.
Yeah,
Bud Light, Miller Light, Coors Light, or you know, or the bigger ones, Bud, Miller, Coors.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to go up there, you know,
Beechwood Light.
But I don't drink those. They're the best in the world brewed, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for me, you know, I'm going. If I tell you, your black rice is fantastic, absolutely fantastic. I would drink a ton of that.
I hope people do buy some of it so that we can continue making it.
Right,
Because
that's the hardest part.
Every brewery, you know, you got 20 beers that you make, and the bottom 3 or 4 every year get cut to make new beers.
You know, the thing is, you know, you put that it's 3.8% on the can. God bless you. Because there's the 5.3, which, you know, some people call the Budweiser rule, which is, you know, if a beer is below 5.3 in California, you don't have to put the ABV on the label. So you find things like 805 and, you know, a number of other beers that don't put the ABV on the label because it's lower, you know, it's like 4 something or whatever. And consumers don't want that. So it doesn't have anything on the label.
Yeah. For
And
some, they feel they're not getting their money's worth.
Right. Always put it on the label. It's like, you know, it's stupid that people make their choices that way based off of, you know, some ABV number. Because I'll tell you that black rice has so much flavor, so much, you know, mouthfeel, all that. I would drink that all the time. But, you know, people will be like, well, no, I'm not paying for that. It's like, well, it's expensive because of, you know, I don't know if it's expensive or not. I got 2 cans for free. You know, but it's expensive because the black rice, you know, the hops, all the other stuff that goes into it, all the labor and the, you know, the time and the equipment, all that went into it is the same. The only difference is the base malt. Base malt's cheap. It's the cheapest thing in brewing is base malt. ABV is cheap. You know, don't base your price consideration you're buying based off of ABV because that is not what it costs. All right, let's take one more short break, and when we come back, we'll wrap up talking about winter warmers right after this. All right, we're back. I want to tell you about my good friends at Brew Chatter up in Reno, or Sparks. Brewchatter.com. Sparks is kind of, you know, right next to Reno. It's like a pimple on Reno. You know, it's like a herpes sore on Reno.
Let's just say it's the left side of Reno.
I was thinking of freckle.
It's the right
on
side.
Reno.
Yes. Good folks. They've been sponsoring us for a bit now, and they've got a ton of stuff. If you want to make a great winter warmer, I guarantee you that Josh and RJ can tell you how to make that beer and provide you all the ingredients and equipment for it. John and I are going to be up there January 15th, Saturday.
That's right.
We're going to have a live show from Brew Chatter. It's going to be something. I don't know. I think we will record something. I think we will say something. I think we will drink a lot of something.
Yep.
But I think
probably have some local homebrews there.
Yes. All you homebrewers should show up. Bring your beers. John and I may do a little tasting there and praise you or denigrate you on live in front of everybody. Who knows? It'll be fun. Take your chances.
That we can guarantee. It'll be fun.
Yes. The folks at Brew Chatter, they are absolutely wonderful. Good folks that really are just, their heart is in taking care of their customers. So really, if you get a chance, they're good folks. Check them out. Brewchatter.com. All right, so we're talking winter warmers. We've talked about lighter beers. We talked about spiced beers. We've talked about some Belgians. Now we're into the barrel aged Imperial stouts.
Speaking of Belgians, I just want to mention Peter.
Mention
Peter.
Bukard?
Yeah, Bukard. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Peter's a great brewer.
Oh yeah.
All right. Are you watching the comments, John?
Oh, yeah. I haven't seen anything new. Oh, yeah. I guess I got to refresh this. How do you refresh this? Darn thing.
My God, where is Bevo?
Yeah.
One of the other things I like is some of the other German beers, the Box, Weissenbach, I think, for me, that's a fall beer. I've always associated with Halloween because I drank it when I was taking my kids around trick-or-treating. But I think that's in there. I think, Eisbach, we actually, you can't legally brew Eisbach in the US under a brewer's license, but, right. Oh yeah. So a lot of people have been doing it. It's illegal, but I think I'm the first person to ever legally brew an Eisbach because I did under the distilling license. I was able to get the TTB to agree with me that the process of freezing was distillation. Distillation, by definition, is the concentration of alcohol by removing water. That is distillation. It says nothing about heat or cold. I said, I am cold distilling this. I'm distilling this. I'm willing to pay distillery taxes on my Eisbach. But once a year, they ask me to announce a category. You guys probably asked too, on the NHC awards thing. And previous years, I told the people, I'm like, hey, we'll brew your beer at Heretic. Come on down. We'll do a pro-am with you. And then this year, I do that every year. And this year it was Eisbach. I was like, oh man, we can't brew an Eisbach. So no, I submitted it for distilled. They rejected it and told me it had to be under malt beverage. I submitted it to malt beverage. They said, no, you can't do that. I said, right. That's why I sent it in as distilled spirits. A little discussion with them, and they're like, okay, reactivate your distilled spirits one, and we'll approve it.
Wow.
Good to go.
That's awesome.
Now I'm gonna have to pay the taxes on spirits for a beer, but whatever. I'm just so thrilled.
It'll be worth it.
Do it.
Yeah.
So that same weekend I saw you in Sacramento, we went to some grocery store and there were not one, not two, not even three, but 4 different beers. There were over $30 a 4-pack. So,
oh my God,
if those guys can get $30 a 4-pack, certainly your Eisbach can get at least $30 a 4-pack. So you should be able to sell it for that.
I think we do it for $1 a pint, and just
what?
Who cares?
Wow.
A big part of why we do this is because we love the knowledge and the struggle of making something great.
True.
So why did who cut off his ear? Van Gogh? Picasso?
Van Gogh.
Right.
Van Gogh, there we
Cut
go.
off his
Van
ear.
Gogh.
It's because
To
he
give
was
it to a
sick of-
hooker.
well, all right. I mean, who wouldn't? He was sick of having to sell, stuff, and the commercial brewing is just such a struggle. And I guess I can say now, my wife Liz and I, we've sold all our interest in Heretic. So we're still working there, but we are no longer financially responsible for a payroll of 50 people and $1 million in hop contracts and all that stuff. So
Congratulations.
thanks. I'm getting old. I'm getting weak. Y'all saw it coming.
Yeah. And I just to address that a little bit, I think there is this prejudice and bigotry about people selling out that needs to go away.
Absolutely.
There are numerous cases of people that have built a brewery, built a brand, and then, hey, it's time to retire.
Mhm.
Do I just go out of business, or do I sell
Right.
and make myself a nice nest egg for the next 10, 20 years? And I don't blame people a bit for that.
No.
Yeah, we've gotten nothing but positive comments on this, and part of it, I would have kept going, but I got too many health issues now, so I need, the problem is, if I was to die and leave Liz and the kids with the brewery, the problem is I don't know what they would do, and I don't know how well everything would treat them. And so
Yeah,
right now, while I still am here, it is better to do it now and to get everything
everything
kind of
sorted
wrapped up
now
and-
before.
right. And no, we didn't make money off the deal, but that's not why we opened a brewery in the first place. I mean, you always kind of dream and say, "Oh, we'll get $1 billion offer." Nah, it ain't happening anymore. That's all kind of done and dusted. Nobody's doing that anymore. They've learned the lessons. But I sold a lot of my tech stocks that I earned working in the software industry in order to fund this thing. And I would have done better to just hold on to those stocks. But so
It's been fun.
So I got less out of it, doing this. But on the other hand, I met some of the most wonderful people in the world and worked with some of the most wonderful folks in the world. Chris and Warren and Ben and John and Joe and another John and Andrew and Will. I've worked with just some of the most beautiful people, so hardworking and so creative, so funny, so smart. That's what craft beer is. And I think it's kind of getting lost with well, here's how we could brew 20% seltzer. It's like art. True craft beer is truly an art, and it's so much fun. And the weird people you meet doing your art, oh man, that's the best. There is no other way to explain that. Like a really funky guy like Fal, I never would have met him if it wasn't for beer.
It's great that I think it's great that you sold your business, because the brewery is going to continue on, and you're going to be able to retire, but you're going to mentor them through so they continue to have your vision of making great beers. And I think that's a win for everybody. The consumers end up with great beer continuing on. Your brewery continues.
It's a great point.
You get to retire. And at some point, young people may not realize this, but at some point we all get to retire, one way or the other,
Yeah.
above or below the ground.
I feel sad about not continuing to, really drive everything and being, I would do it for the end of time. I will help, breweries, and, if you got a brewery and you're in trouble and you need help, call on me. But just be prepared for me to tell you, how much you suck and what you need to change.
Yeah.
Pull no
Not that I
punches.
know anything, but All right. So let's wrap up. What wonderful tips of advice do you have on this beer? I think a big part of why the huge Arker works is because of the base beer.
I was going to
Base
say
beer
it's
is
because
great.
I'm sitting down.
It's a great 15.5% beer.
It really is.
That's
This
the
is
problem.
wonderful.
Is you can put stuff in a great wild turkey barrel, but I think if the initial beer isn't great, it's not going to turn out great. And even then, like we talked, let's say you take the best beer in the world, put in the best barrels in the world. Some of those barrels don't work out. But
Yep.
the question is, what was it, Val, that made you come up with this recipe to go into those barrels? I mean, what are the tips and tricks you can provide to people that are doing this sort of thing?
Well, there's a bunch that goes into making any beer, obviously, and I think you got to look at what you want your end product to be. So this beer, without the barrel, in my opinion, isn't all that tasty. I mean, it's a good beer, it's well made, but it doesn't have the balance it should. And we knew that because we knew it was going to spend a year in a barrel. So we could make it a little more aggressive, didn't have to have the same kind of balance. In fact, we didn't want it to have the same kind of balance because in the end, that beer, if we'd made it super balanced, would have come out unbalanced at the other side. So this beer, although well made, and you can drink it, definitely you could sit and have a pint of this beer prior to going in the barrel. It's a little bit kind of elbows and knees, and it needs that time. And I think when you brew a bigger beer, you look down the road and say, where's this beer going to be when I want it served? When we brew a Pilsner, I don't judge my Pilsner a month in. I don't even judge it 2 months in. I begin to think about how it's going to be after 60 days and where what we might do, how long we might want to age it. But it just doesn't, it's not ready yet. I think every beer has an arc, and you got to find where you want that beer to end up and brew to that. So that's part of it.
So you mentioned the elbows and knees, and I'm all with you. So I imagine that certain parts of the beer were perfect. I mean, maybe fermentation was perfect. Maybe there's a little bit too much roast, a little bit too much sugar or something. Maybe those are the elbows and knees you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean,
what parts should we accentuate in a beer that's going to be barrel aged that are going to become a little muted when it's out of the barrel?
Well, certainly alcohol. So this beer, when you first have it, it's hot, and you know it. And you guys are talking about how you don't taste the alcohol. Well, the initial beer you certainly do, because it's young. We put it into the barrel when it's 3 weeks old, and that beer, even if one going to a barrel, should be 6 or 8 weeks old before you start tasting it. So when we taste it going into the barrel, it's hot, elbows, and it's like, there's great things about being a teenager, but you don't always want to be a teenager. There's a lot of difficult things about it. So it's kind of like that. You put the teenager in the barrel, not at home. Don't do this at home. Don't put your teenager in a barrel. But you put, that young beer in the barrel, and some of those things mellow out, just as your teenagers are going to mellow out in their 20s and 30s. So
there you go, John. Wait till their 30s.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, if you got kids, yeah, wait till they're 30s. Don't judge them yet. My parents should never have judged me until I was in my 50s.
60s. Yeah.
Easy now. So I think, the alcohol is one that you're going to find that's going to mellow out. And like you said, the roast is going to mellow out a lot. And the barrel is going to, the charcoal in the barrel, people, you use charcoal to clean things up. Charcoal filter your water,
Right.
charcoal filter. So part of the char on these barrels is going to suck out some of the stuff that you don't want in there. So you're going to lose some stuff, some of it good, most of it bad. But you can put a more angry, beer into the barrel and then taste it along the way. Some of our beers are 3 months old in the barrel. The bourbon barrel stout that we make, only 3 months, because we don't want it to be 6 months. And it's not a big enough beer to stand up to 6 months, I don't think. We make a salted caramel porter that's 9 months. 6 months isn't quite enough. 12 months is too many. Like you said, that beer doesn't stand up to the tannins it starts to pull out of the wood. So each beer is going to be a little different.
You open up a can of worms, wrong metaphor, in terms of the length of time in the barrel and different styles of beer. That could be an entire show in itself.
Absolutely.
And one we should probably have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
John, I think you're feeling these beers now.
Oh, I really am.
At 15.5, who's not?
Yeah.
It's delicious though.
It really
I would
is.
normally not drink a 12-ounce can of 15.5% beer, but it's really well done. Every one of these beers has been fantastic. The black rice, fantastic. 3.8%. Jesus Christ. I drank a case of that probably,
Yeah.
That I need to find. The winter solstice, just
hands
delicious.
down one of my favorites of all time.
That was really good too. And I don't tend to drink that many spice beers, but when they're that well done, I do. I drank all of that. And now I'm on the huge Arker, which is 15.5%. Which I shouldn't really drink the whole thing, but it's in the glass already. So come on.
This grin is chemically induced.
The beer's
This is
gotta
really
go
nice.
somewhere. Might as well go down,
Go down swinging.
Yeah.
Or go down as a swinger. I'm not sure. I heard it once, hanging out with the whites. So
Right.
I'm just following along. Anything else to add there, Val, about the Brew winter beers? What did we not cover? What this has been a very loose thing here.
Yeah.
Old ale.
Or
Did we talk
what's
about old ale?
next?
Ooh, old ale. Gale's old ale.
Huh?
Love
Nice
that
old
beer.
ale. But you can have that all year long. It's the thing.
Not at my house. I can't find it here in Boonville.
Yeah. We talked about doing a live from your Boonville tap room.
Absolutely. Anytime you guys want to come on up. I'm buying the beer. And we're gonna
Oh, yeah, you are.
Podcast.
This is gonna bankrupt you.
Maybe March. March, I could swing that.
March would be good.
Oh, March sounds good.
Did I tell you guys we're doing this historic beer style, brewing thing? So we're doing 8 different beers, and we've
Historic
already done
or classic?
Historic.
Brewing, are you brewing classic styles? That's what I want to know.
classic. So I'll tell you, we'll just go through these quick. So the first one we brewed a Dutch kite beer. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong,
Right.
but it's 70% oats or something like that, 60-70% oats, then 20 or 30% wheat, and the rest is barley. And the extended boil, like 2.5 hour boil. So we brewed that already. It's on draft. We brewed a raw Berliner Weiss, which is being co-fermented in wood. So no boil, just the mash run off into the barrel, and then co-fermented with lacto, Brett and brewer's yeast in wood. That should be ready. Well, the way it's tasting now, it might be ready in June. We brewed this stone beer yesterday. That was our third one. Hopefully in February, we'll be brewing a Grodzki, the Polish smoked wheat beer.
Grodzki. Yeah.
I'm excited about that one. It's kind of my jam. Low alcohol smoked beer. And then in March, we're going to brew the Sati with the hot rocks. Maybe you guys should come up for that.
Oh,
and then do a live broadcast.
I like me some hot rocks.
Okay. Yeah. That sounds like a plan.
I think we should do it.
Yeah. When was the last time you got to put hot rocks into mash?
Like 2 years ago, a couple of years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I've never done that, so I'm pretty excited.
Libertine. It was pretty amazing. Yeah, it was the only way to heat stuff up. He didn't have a way to heat anything other than hot rocks.
Well, sadly, we don't have a wood mash tun, but because that would be really cool to have a wood mash tun to put the hot rocks in. But
I think you could build one between now and March. What does the matter? Where John and I aren't special. You're not going to build the wood mash tun between now and March. I'm just saying.
I'll work on it.
Okay. Would that be the week of the 14th, perhaps?
I promise. The 14th? No, that way your wives and girlfriends would be angry with you. Can't do it on February 14th. Oh, wait,
March. When are we there?
I don't know. I will check March and let you guys know.
Okay.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, brother. Thanks for spending the time. I know you're busy. You actually have work to do compared to John and I, which, we don't have shit to do, but
just finishing up Christmas presents. Yeah. Wrapping and stuff.
They're in Italy, or where are you at?
Me?
Yes.
Oh, this is the
Sistine Chapel?
No, it's in Spain. It's the
Bull
Plaza de España. Plaza de España in Seville.
Nice. Well, there you go.
Or Naboo, as the case may be.
All right, Boo. There you go.
Naboo. Yeah. Star Wars.
Thank you, Fal, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
The sweetest person in the world. We love you, and thanks for sending the beers. Although you didn't send them, and you didn't even know we were going to do this. Every single one of them is excellent.
Yeah,
thank you.
Really.
Anderson Valley's really hitting on all cylinders at this point, and
definitely
it's delicious. So.
You say that until you try our raw Berliner and then you may change your mind.
Yeah, that might be a problem.
It could be brilliant. I don't know yet.
We'll see. Could be
March.
I still think we do collab.
Yeah.
Maybe. Wait a minute. We come up in March. It is John Palmer, Jamil Zainashev, Fal Allen, Anderson Valley collab.
Yeah.
Done. We can't. We'll put the Sati off to another day. We'll do a collab in March.
Okay. I'm looking forward to that.
We'll do it the week after the Sati or whatever.
Yeah.
Or
now we can push the Sati. All you got to do is drop hot rocks in the mash. You don't have to boil the damn thing. It's going to take like 15 minutes to do the whole thing.
I don't know if you've seen me do a collab, but generally it's me not doing anything but drinking. Yeah, I'm just saying that's how it works.
That's how I do the collab. Who's going to brew?
You're supposed to have employees and make it happen. And we point and they, we take pictures like we actually did something. We throw in some hops, take a picture. Yeah.
All right.
Drink, eat, all that stuff.
We're on the same page on how to do it. So then March is it. I'm going to put this damn thing in my calendar right now.
Please do. I think we do this. And I think, if people want to show up in Boonville,
you're welcome to join us.
You're welcome to join us. Come out and join us for this collab party at Anderson Valley in March.
Tom's just leaving. He's like, I'm out of here.
He's like, he flew. Did you see that?
What day works good for you guys? Oh, wait, maybe we should just take this offline or at this point.
I think people will be. Yeah. I don't have my calendar up. Yeah, sometime in March, we can announce it on social media. I think people should show up. If you've never been out there to Anderson Valley, you should. It is a special, the whole language thing and all this, you don't believe it, but it's true. It is an isolated valley in California. It's a little difficult to get there, but check it out. Great stuff. The people are amazing. The entire area is amazing. You want to go. I'm looking forward to it. March. We'll do this in March. So there you go. Thank you, brother. I think this was as good a Christmas show as we could have done, and all because of you.
Well, happy holidays to everybody out there.
Happy holidays.
And
normally I don't drink all the beers that are sent to me, but these three I drank all of them.
Yeah, me too.
I'm gonna have another black rice because that's a reasonable beer to have now.
Yeah.
There you go. Thank you. All right. Take
Thanks
care,
a lot.
Cheers.
Until
Happy
then,
holidays.
brew strong, everyone.
Brew strong.
Or brew ho ho ho.